The alternative Digitalk. Real issues, real talk.
Fellow citizens, following the sequence of events, Uganda seems to be at political crossroads.
I'm not a servant of anybody.
Madam, I know the law.
As such, Alternative Digital brings you the Interface Show with retired Colonel Dr. Kiza Besuje.
Let's keep on the same page on Alternative Digitalk,
As he gives you the alternatives on the transition question, rule of law, human rights and freedom, youth inclusion in governance, economic stagnation, as he confirms.
I'll be always here Saturday from 10 a.m. in the morning. Be there.
Don't miss the live discussion on the Alternative Uganda, Digitalk TV Facebook pages, and the Alternative Uganda YouTube channel.
The alternative Digitalk. Real issues, real talk.
A very good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I welcome you to today's edition of the Mighty Drive. My name is Roger Sturiabwe, and together with my colleague Farida Bikobede, will be going through a discussion today that is going to be around the issues that have been in the 2022, but also most importantly, we'll be focusing on activism, and that is why we have one of the chief activists of this country, Mr. Norman Tumuhimbise, is going to be giving us how much progress they have made, what are the hindrances they are facing, and how are they prepared to address some of those hindrances. Now, if you have noticed, today's show has begun at 8 a.m., different from the usual 7 a.m. We did announce last week that beginning this year, we're going to have to do an extension of time, and that is why from today onwards, beginning 2023, we are going to be airing from 8 a.m. to 10 a.m. Same time, 2 hours, but just an extension of from 7 to 8, and then going forward. I welcome you. We're going to be looking a little bit at what has been trending, but also in the updates, which we are going to do together with Farida, we're going to look a little bit on the speech of the president. He did mention a number of issues he said that some of the reasons why we have had commodity prices surge up and things being expensive is because of the war in Ukraine and the sanctions on the Russian oil. So most of the commodities apparently have been coming in from the West, and you know, the war in Ukraine disrupted the chain of distribution, and as such we have had an upsurge in the commodity prices. So those are some of the things he talked about. He talked about agriculture and said that maybe they are intensifying irrigation schemes to make sure that people actually can sustain their crops, even if they face an extended time of the drought season. If you have you paid attention last year, I think we had the longest drought across the country, and not region specific this time. We had a lot of people going about 6 months without rain at all. People with animals and crops almost lost everything. And if we have a country that we have already said that our backbone is agriculture, it means everything else is affected, and the livelihoods are also affected as such. He also mentioned that moving forward to avoid the problems that we have faced with the sanctions on Russian oil, it is the effect that we are going to drift away from diesel and petrol-fueled cars and pitches, and he says we are going to go electric this time. He's saying that he's going to talk to some investors, make sure that we transition from the use of oil and gas and transition to electric oil is the only way. And he said actually specifically that they will begin with pitches, make sure that they are all electric. They are going to swap with people. They bring you an electric motorcycle.
They take
away the other one. So people were asking how are these investors going to be benefiting. He said the only thing he's going to do is make sure that they dominate the charging ports and points of those electric motorcycles and cars. So they only actually monopolize. Only the investors will have a monopoly over where you charge your pitch from. So that is in exchange, because they did an open exchange for the pitches, so people do not have to abandon.
So that's how they are benefiting.
And buy a new, yes. So those are some of the things. Good morning, Farida.
I thought that the electric motorcycles, you can charge them from home.
No, they have.
Using this.
They cannot be using women. I don't think they will be using our direct women. I think there is a kind of a system probably that they charges them. Otherwise, everyone would be moving around with an
That
extension.
also sounds like it will be expensive.
Yeah, it definitely, it might be.
I can imagine the line, you are there going to charge.
To charge your...
To charge your car, you have a long journey to take. I think it's going to be really, really disturbing and expensive. Good morning, Rogers.
Good morning. Good to have you today.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year to you.
Yeah, I can see you all happy in this New Year.
Yeah, I am happy. I hope that things are...
You hope that it becomes the best year
yes.
Of the century.
It has been the prayer.
Tusaba katonda agiteeke mu nkola. Abali ku the Alternative Uganda Facebook page mwasuze mutya njagala okubalamusaako Farida Bikoberege manya gange ne ku Digitalk TV osobola otusangayo era ku Facebook to streaming live on both pages. So olunaku lwaleero we have an activist, a human rights defender in the studios, an author, Mr. Tumuhimbise. He is the national coordinator, the Alternative Social Movement. We will be talking about activism, what has failed and what has worked, and what we need to do okubeera nga ate twongera mu activism mu Uganda in this year eseemuko the previous year. So tetumanyi ba activist bafuna bamanyi bagamba balya ne bakivaako, they just got tired ne bagwesa essuubi n'agamba ayi nakyemalira nga bamuyita tagenda kuvaako neetu neekalakaasa. So they got into their comfortable zones ne bagamba wayi omusajja katumuleke mukama kyanaaleeta ne badda mu ssaala. But before he introduces himself, njagala okuba a quote of the day as to be the quote of the year. As the year begins, you need to be, you just have a blank space. It is about you to fill in what you want and what you don't want, what will work out and what you shouldn't work out. So I want to give you a few points. In this new year, believe that everything is possible. Anything is possible for as long as you put your energy to it. Start each day with goals. Like, as you get out of your house, just note down, today I want to accomplish this and this and this, and work towards it. And eat more real food, move ku junk food, because now we will need you healthy. So buy good books and make time to read them. Buy good books and make time to read those books. There is a tendency of us, the youth, we want to brag. Olwaleero nyongeddeko ku collection yange y'obutabo n'okagula n'okateeka ali naye nga tokasoma. Make sure when you buy the book, please read it. It is really, really important, and drink more water. It is important to remember I need you healthy and I need you to be developing in all aspects of life. Lastly, exercise daily, even when it sounds like a terrible idea. Exercise daily. You can dance. Actually, dancing helps a lot. Wabanga togenda sobola kukwata kagwa kotandika kubuka boka abantu abamu bajja kifinding nga kitali okay, so you can dance in your house. It is also an exercise. A very good morning. Rogers, I want to give you the opportunity to welcome our guest. Tandike mpola mpola discussion yafe yonnako.
Thank you so much for the quote. You people drink more water.
Yes, it is really, really important.
You need your healthy. Run around if you must.
Exactly.
But
if you can't run, walk.
But yeah, by the way, walking a long distance and back, it helps if you cannot run.
Yeah.
Yeah. There are people who feel like I cannot handle the pressure of running or doing exercises, but you can walk and it will equally help. I want to take the opportunity to welcome the guest of the day, Mr. Tumuhimbise. Good morning, sir. Say hello to our viewers today.
Leero 2 January 2023.
Yes.
Sitandika mwaka na lulimi lw'Abacherupe. Nza kutandika n'oluwete Tumuhimbise n'ogwo mazina gange. bannaffe abatulaba nze noma Tumuhimbise mujja kunkeeza mu luzungu lwakunkya kuno oluzungu lw'abakyeruppe ngate ebizibu ebituluma bituluma mu Luganda bituluma mu lulimi lw'abannansi. Otherwise, happy new year bagamba ebizibu kati bituluma mu ngeri y'abannansi era n'omuggo poliisi gwekuba mu ngeri ya bujjajja kuba ngeri ya wano. So bannaffe mwebali nnyo kuba nti mwekumidde ku Alternative Digitalk ne Digitalk TV. Definitely okwebaza Rogers and Farid and the team okuba nti mwadjustinze ku budde ndowooza for lack of another word ababadde balina obunafu bw'okkeera naddala nnyo abagenyi ndowooza mubayambi naba post ze mwateekayo nga bagamba obudde badde bwakumakya nnyo nga tutyo bagamba kati tusuubirembu kati guno omwaka bagenda kukola kukwata obudde kubanga mubateddewo obudde obuli fair. Naye mwebale definitely mwebale. Happy New Year to every Ugandan and the entire citizens of this globe. We hope that this year is relatively fair. That's what we can say. You can never have a year that is best. No, it's just fair. But also, unlike most of the people, for me, I celebrate 2022 because I have seen it go. So I cannot be so excited of 2023. I mean, that's my nature. I don't celebrate a year that I'm in. I celebrate the year that I've finished because that one is it's a done deal. I can only be sure that I finished a year 2022. I can't be sure of 2023. Yes.
But you can believe, like we believers believe like guno mwaka ngenda gumalako. So because when you believe, God puts it into
okay. Let's go with a belief.
Okay, it's so good to have you today, sir. So first off, yesterday there's a media outlet, I'll mention it, Daily Monitor. It did a poll on which of the 3 arms of government lived to the expectations of the people.
I remember participating. I don't know.
Yeah, I did. I participated too.
And I can ascertain what your answers were like.
So it did a poll on which one of the arms of government lived to the expectations of the people, at least did the best. So the first was judiciary, the second was executive, the third was legislature, and there was a fourth option, none.
And you went for none.
And the way it was leading.
None.
None was leading.
None was leading.
About 8,000 people voted. 91% of them voted none.
For none, yeah.
The judiciary had 3%.
Yeah.
The executive had 4%. And the legislature, surprisingly, one that people kind of have links to, had only 2%. What do you think this says to the country that we are part of?
I think for me, I don't know how I could also make my submissions on whether it should be Luganda English. But this is to say, since it was Monta, it wasn't Wokedi. So now let us go with the Monta language. One, I am this person who has always been honest when it comes to politics and governance issues in this country. I want to believe that, save for a few of you who voted none, some of them must have voted none out of ignorance. That they did not, you see, out of anger and ignorance. You get? You know those things. But if you ask, because for some reason, omuntu yomoyo eyalonze mbu talina kyayinza ku crediting executive or parliament or what, nga nayo kenyini tamanyi bigendererwa bya ene of the 3. You get? Niyo olwokuba nti yasulako enjala mu ogwo omwaka kankubulya jagamba n'omulamuzi alishakwano weebuuza omulamuzi yandikiteeka makuwenga emmere ey'obwereere. It is also possible. Naye ate newankubadde kiri bwe kityo, because singa babadde obaolyawo nga bonna bategedde wandisuubidde mu percentage, most likely ekyandibadde none naye nga percentage teyandi yambuse to that tune. I am this very person asobola okugamba nti whereas bakoze buli kimu, okay, balina bye batakoze, there's those few things they have done. You get?
Yes, you percentage. Nanti jebulize zo percentage.
Obuliwa,
Zebanga
1%.
Ze 2-3 wali yalina nefo abadde nefo.
Okay, to also say, at a personal level, I cannot join both of you to say none. I am sorry, and I take the blame. So
and we were not persuading you to join us to vote none.
Of people who voted that completely nothing did these people do. There is one thing to be, you
No,
know,
but
the mere
it
fact
wasn't
that
about what
performance,
they did
that's
or
what I mean. Don't you mean
yes,
performance?
what worked for the people
I
along the three.
I also wanted to interpret it
for sure.
because they said
Kubisa
it lived
to the expectations of the people.
So even as if
But
the
you see,
expectation
Roger,
house of
when you
100,
say
you
nine-
have like 5%. Honestly, literally,
You
have
didn't
done
live
nothing
today, yes.
As far as my expectations are concerned as a citizen.
Okay, this is it also, practically. If you have my debt of 1 million, and I say, Rogers, I have issues, please pay me back, and you are able to give me 10,000 out of 1 million, would you be fair to say that my expectation was to get 1 million, but I have not gotten 1 million, so it's completely none? Or you say, much as my expectations were to receive my 1 million from Norman, who has my debt, at least he paid 10,000 shillings. So there is some hope. That
does that mean that you lived to my expectations? No.
Anyhow, Rogers, it's a no, it's a none for you and Farida. But to say there were some basics that the government of the Republic of Uganda tried to do. There are to some extent there are some attempts that they did to do indeed gamble, because literally if you say completely none, maybe you would have
but you would actually
shootings
vote.
here and there. You would perhaps
You
see
would
people.
you would cast your vote now.
I was going to ask you the same.
Which one lived to your expectations as a citizen? Out of the three.
No, guys, don't make me like don't put this. Sounds like a leading question. You say rate any of.
No, we were not rating. We were voting.
No, you're talking about the percentage there. How do you talk about the percentage? Nti kubitundu 10 government kali yabaddeyo katugeze parliament yabaddeyo n'ebino maybe legislature.
No, you have an option of voting one.
Okay, let's sure.
Yes,
how about
yeah,
this?
out of the judiciary,
I didn't know you are students of Chibu.
Let's do this. Let's do this. How about you rate, but of the three, which one do you think did the most? So out of the three, you have one that did performed better, but giving the percentages of the performance for each one of those and reasons why.
I am glad that I beat you by age and political experience. Let me now teach you this. As a politician, and at least I know you know the principles of politics and governance, Museveni tried to do his best to manipulate and maneuver you get the year. Yeah? Because some of us were excited thinking that Parliament, after imprisoning the likes of Sewanyana and the team, maybe Mpuga would come and the rest of the opposition to say, we are boycotting the Parliament. They boycotted for not even a week. They came back. You get? So in such political manipulation, then Museveni performed. Not even executive per se, as an individual, because literally in my view, we seem to have a pictorial executive with a practical president. You get? Not even the presidency. President as an individual, Museveni, manipulated and he maneuvered to end his year without too much havoc. I mean, I'm an activist. How many demonstrations do you have in town that are serious that could even cause Museveni to come back and say, guys, okay, can we talk? Nothing. So he manipulated and managed it. When it comes to judiciary, he's the same person, an individual that also manipulated and managed the judiciary. Because even when he stated that the judiciary should also be warned in regards to granting bail, you get? Indeed, he achieved it, because literally the people he was so much interested in are still in jail. When you come into Parliament, every single useless and irrelevant law has done what? Has passed. So you put most of these entire achievements to his performance. When it comes to the expectations of the citizens.
So you realize why we say none.
Now I'm coming back now. When it comes to the expectations of the citizens
people,
like me and you,
Definitely,
they now go with your no, with your none.
So now you are coming
I'm not contradicting myself. I'm trying to balance this whole discussion. That if for him he set his agenda to maneuver, and definitely he manipulated, no matter how he did it, but he did it and he managed the country. You know, I mean, this whole year he has been so much into the PR, public relations, especially with international bodies. I was about to say that the Chiman, because okay, he's fat. Okay, the man, he was in Europe, he was in US, moving around, and he touched, he was okay. Even when you tried to mobilize, you had even less than 20 people saying, why is he here? You get? So he did his best. When it comes to your parliament, it also, I think this disease of individualism is affecting almost every decision in this country. That parliament has also been solely managed by the two principals. They are the ones who say this happens, this shouldn't. Yeah, I am not so certain, but most likely yes, that's the year when Anita Mong was so harsh onto Zake, and definitely Zake lost his position, yeah, as commissioner. Not so that to an extent that the opposition and the entire commission of parliament has not bothered to say, okay, fine, Zake has gone. Why would we have this whole period minus a commission of parliament? So you get, because each of the heads of these organs is feared, is a semi-god. So they have those organs by their pockets by their pockets. You go to judiciary, you know what that Dolo Owinyi has done. Now, finally from me, it's yes and no. They have tried to do some things, and I don't want to sound like I'm on YouTube.
No, but supposing there is no that option of a yes and a no, because
he has not ranked from his
okay. Ranking the for me the president, not the cabinet, because literally for me I take him as an individual. He has individualized everything. He has done his like 10%. Even to the expectations of citizens, by the way. And this is, for me, this is a frank opinion. Because you see, when you say completely zero, guys, I am one of those haters of the deeds of Museveni. Not Museveni as an individual. I am one of those leading haters of his deeds in as far as governance is concerned. But this country, you cannot say that completely nothing has been done in regards to the expectation of citizens. Maybe some citizens expected to have some, okay, even when they are hungry, there's some bit of sleep. Maybe of course, they are human rights violations, but you cannot say human rights violations have been at 100%. You cannot, then you wouldn't be fair. You cannot be fair to say that the judiciary completely didn't do anything. That as if to mean that the judiciary even never came to work. They stayed home for the whole year. They didn't even, you see, it's one thing for you to be denied bail, but it's another thing for the officer to come and say you have been denied bail. Those are two different concepts. If you find they came, I appeared in court, they didn't grant me bail. Yes, government, they worked, they've been working. Okay, it could be, in fact, all of them could be around 10 or so %. And that's my opinion, and I hold it and I own it. So, the three of them.
So let me ask you, Mr. Newman, from what you just said. You said it is one thing for judiciary to show up and at least deny you bail. Isn't that the same thing as having institutions for a picture and having them not do anything particularly? Because, they could have stayed home, but they showed up. But even their showing up wasn't fair to me, that my bail was denied to me fairly. Most of them, like you said, some of them were denied entirely because their issues were political, not because the bail was fairly denied. So is it any important or beneficial for them to show up and still not do what fairness should itself?
I think for me, the point should be, I think the non-performers, for lack of another word, maybe they are these, either the Supreme Court and the Constitutional Court, which has the biggest backlog of cases. But I want to believe that magistrates and some other lower courts, to be honest, those guys have, myself and Farida, we are beneficiaries of the judiciary. We are on bail. So why didn't Farida give them 1%? Because at least she's the 1%. She's a beneficiary of I don't know which magistrate. She's a beneficiary. And myself, so at least Farida should stand and be a 1% of the people who benefited from the judiciary.
Now you know the 1% singers reporting a
now you see, but you see, Farida and Rogers, even when we are in a government, there will be arrest, there will be denial of bail, there will be granting of bail. You see, we have to be honest to ourselves and to the entire country.
No, man, your expectations are really, really different from my expectations. If they work to your
Farid,
expectations, they didn't work
you
my
go back and
expectations.
revote judiciary. You still give them a none, a zero.
Yes.
when you're a beneficiary of court bail.
Remember, I voted none, knowing that I am still reporting on bail. So it doesn't mean that
you must have been persuaded by Roger. This is the point from me. The lower courts have tried. And even definitely High Court has also tried. I've been watching and following some of the is it Kawesi or Chirumira proceedings, and you would see, I can't remember her name, who was very, very key in regards to one of the suspects who had been beaten and forced to confess for having murdered Chirumira or something. I think some of them have done basic work.
Yeah, they have. We are not saying they haven't, but you see, when they tell you to rate an organization, you don't single out a person. Like, okay, they told you to rate Digitalk, and you're like, Norman has been a good person, but this whole, apart from Norman, this whole organization.
That's what comes
so
with
we are rating the whole
That's what
thing.
comes with my 10%, and I only don't persuade me to withdraw it. I go with the 10% of the entire government.
You see, I also agree with you, Norman. But here is the thing. We agree they did some job. Otherwise, this country would not be.
Points.
Even 20% would not be there. But are we not settling for the atheistism? For
Thank
the
you.
at least
10% cannot go for atheistism. It goes below average. And the reason for which all of us, the reason for which all of us are here is to ensure that this country is better.
That's right.
I have, of course, guys, and I must confess, there were days when I was that person at the extreme. Like, there is nothing completely. And as you grow, you see, activism also goes with growth. And then you become objective. And even when activists begin to reason objectively, that's the so the Korea comes with objectivism. It is to say there is 10%, which, with no doubt, this government can never achieve the 90%. Never. To make it 100. So,
as someone has just commented, like, the poll wasn't all about giving opinion, but it was about voting. So,
that's the challenge we have when you are dealing with a lawyer here, and also even when you want to say that she's a media personality, she's an activist. So I will not take your lead question of a yes and a no. I also own my head. Let that person vote for himself and not to persuade me to say that nothing was done. Neither say over 10%.
Okay.
And why don't you also highlight my assertion that the remaining 90, Museveni and his team do not have any single capacity to ever achieve the 90%. So literally, they cannot. It's like, if it's water, you get? So they can't exceed 10%. Never.
Why do you think so?
Because between 1986 and 2000, between 1986 and 80, they were close to 90. You get? So they have been their curve has been coming down. In fact, between now and 2026, they might even be 2%. So they do not have. So as long as you still have the same type of with even his name tells you cannot cohabura him, you can't advise him. You have, you know that team. So their graph continues to go down. A reason for which I am here, and all of us, that the 90% can only be achieved by Ugandans. So as long as they take back their constitutional mandate as it seems.
You just answered my next question.
I see.
Because if you see Museveni as an individual, as a president, he has a whole team of people who he works with. I do not know if all the people have failed or a few people who are directing them are the ones who have failed.
Let us correct this, Roger and Farida, and our viewers. Mr. Museveni has a team of people who work for him. He does not have a team of people that works with him. These are two different theories. He has people who work for him than working with him. You see, working with is coming and telling Mr. President, Mr. President, honestly, this won't work. Are you sure? Benedict, you think you saw the man. You know, one of the things I respect about Museveni, he's not a smoker, he doesn't abuse, okay, as far as we know.
He does not abuse drugs.
Yes, he doesn't abuse any drugs or anything. So once he comes, he's using his head as sober as it is. He was in Tungam and he said those parliamentarians are joking with the Bennett. Is it Bennett? Panet or something? Bennett thing. I do not know if he was a young boy like Mr. Kanyamba would say, you would assume he's a girlfriend. She's a girlfriend. Like doing lots of favors for, you know. For Pinette. So if he had a team of people working with him, they would tell him that, Mr. President, okay, if Parliament was indeed working with him, not working for him, would still insist and say, Mr. President, this woman who is ill-experienced about coffee, you know, I liked his analogy. He said, ono mukazi tatunda nkoya de chikopo cha mwanya. And for me, ono mukazi tatunda nkoya de omazi ne mwanya zibera mu byayi mu chai, buno etu. Oyo mukazi tatunda nkoya de tulya mwanyi, mu batunda mu tax park. You can't now risk to make her manage entire national coffee. Where a hospital tanaita ya dempiso emu ya denkozeseko ya the second hand
terina zimbibwa lichali kumusinji
myake meka, you see,
lichali kumusinji dwali.
You cannot say he has a team of people working with him. He has a very big team of people working for him. You get, so literally for me that is the challenge, and which Ugandans need to know that we don't have a parliament working with Museveni. We have a parliament that works for Museveni. We have no judiciary that is working with Museveni. We have a judiciary that works for Museveni. We have no presidency and the entire cabinet working with Museveni, but rather a cabinet that works for Museveni.
So that will mean that
this country is run by one person. I think if that's the conclusion to make, it's run by one individual. Be it UPDF, be it anything. I mean, as far as I know, that you cannot even move a section. A section in the army or police is 12 officers of police or UPDF or military here without Museveni's knowledge that, oh, UPDF is going to be walking on the road with 12 people without his knowledge. They will know. So that is it for me, that the country is being managed by one person.
So in other words,
that's why.
In other words, there is no opposition, because if you say the parliament works from 7, and in parliament we have opposition members, are they working from 7? Are they not working? What are they
what
doing?
Is factual? The parliament here is more about the government. That is what is factual and on paper. Nayate parliament here about the Wakanya government. Tibakola bintu byabaludda Wakenya government bainakola chanjawulo. It's like to say Museveni doesn't have ministers. No, Museveni does have ministers. Niye tebakola ministers bainakola ki? Bainakola wala beti kamya ekololo ku lifestyle audit. A very wonderful research to work Bambi, even when I don't trust her in her way of doing things. Naye Museveni Bambi najjayo ne ka smile as in ngali serious. Olaba, you don't need, you must be careful with this thing. At least a whole president yadde batubba obusinga bukola ki babuteeka wano. You get no mwewuunya kati ye nti bweba mmere nti maid guwaleeta okulabirira abaana waka bwabbe mmere mukyalo nagamba maid ono wakugoba abbe mmere nagamba at least ajirira wano
at least
tajiwa ba neighbor kwaga ajirira mu nyumba bono awako olumu n'abaana. You get the reasoning of the maid, of the wife that you have, so you get the reasoning of the president you have. Mbuyadde batubba sente bakola ki bazideka muno bazimba malls, they build hotels. In fact, Museveni was clear. It means to me nti abagamba bwababbibe amanyine sente Museveni amanyine ababbi sente mwaziteeka kati example hotels mulabe nene nebi malls mutegera bino byababbi bani ba Museveni abatagamba kubanga yayogera sente mwakola ki mwebaziteeka. So you literally don't have any you have one individual managing this whole country, and that's one, in fact one, as you hear, Museveni, definitely.
Now you did mention the opposition, and now opposition also in their setup are also more like activists who are, advocating for change of things and probably presenting alternatives. Now you are one of, I think, the leading activists in this country for some time now. If you were to rate the work of activism and what it might have achieved in the year 2022, would you say they have done work?
I think they have tried, but also they can't go below, above 10%.
10?
The activists, me inclusive, and the rest of the activists in this country. Reason being, we also have to interrogate church related activists butakola bye balina kukola. Kubanga omuntu abeera ku TV n'alaba nga omuntu yajja ku parliament oba ku street nga alina just kipande poliisi nemuba emiggo ku muntu nekubako agamba weewe ndabiddeko kati banakuba paka ddi. So you have to interrogate lwaki ekiganyo activist ogenda ku street okukola bye balina kukola. Ekyokubiri nabo balaba nga n'abandi badde ba chief activists nga parliament nga no beesuulira eggwanga nagamba ne balaba, because for me I will represent the not because they sent me but because I follow their discussions on social media n'ebirala nti balaba abantu badde bakama baabwe nga bali muzipate mikolo mutagamba weewe nekyakabani nti kati wali ekifaananyi kibakola ki kyebalaga nekyebalabirako nebagamba munnange betwandisobiddemu bannaabwe bali eri babonaabona kale lwaki tebatugambye nti tetugenda kubeera mu parliament for this long because tusuubira nga as an activist nti parliament eyo tesobola kutambula mwezi mulambo oba ebiri nga terimu opposition as a whole. Naye opposition yammwe yeemu tegina bumalirivu obwo busobola kukola ki
baagala kasitting allowance
tebasobola kugaana bagamba ffe twesuddemu ogwa julume tetugenda kukola for 2 months until Supreme Court or a judiciary or by any other trial court fairly ziwuliza abantu bano kale waakiri bagambe kati ffe bwe nga temwesiga bantu beeyimirira bantu bano kale mutuwaka kwakkuliza mbufe nga opposition in totality tweyimirire segirinya nani yes tugambe because you see bwebanga balina okukolagana bonna abasatu ngaekisinde kya amasiga government parliament eyina ebeera opposition bwessaawo akakazo negamba guys kale ffe tubeeyimire nga entire opposition. I want to believe Owenyindolo wouldn't be that dense with his team obutaba abantu bano ki naye bugamba tetugenda kujja bagamba bajja kujja gamba bantu bayina because waliwo akaseera kolina okuteerawo bannoomu bino ogamba guys no matter the salary, no matter obukambwe bwa Anita, no matter obukambwe bwa Museveni, tetugenda kikola. That parliament cannot pass any single law without the entire opposition at least being present in parliament. But so bwe tulabira kwa abantu gamba wewe kangira ndi wakanga nange ndabirira abaana binansa I mean
so in other words what you're trying to attribute the 10%, the non-performance of the activists to the failures of parliament.
No,
not
parliament in particular, but the point here was fenna betulabirako but wachakulabirako ki. You get honestly, if you were in our shoes, no kera kumacha Dr. Besigye nakera ku street nibakwata Besigye ne mukako 2 people, 2 as in 2 nebucha kumacha bambi Nyanja Dorin and I mean with 2 other ladies over 1 or 2, 1 MP actually. You get Adeke was what Adeke name
and the other woman.
And what's her name? God, I've forgotten that lady's name. You get entire parliament which has opposition. Wherever Mukoti, the same opposition members of parliament, and if I am wrong, you will correct me. The leading opposition in parliament did not even appear in court to stand surety, at least to show some bit of solidarity. Let us assume Honorable Mpuga was out of the country. You get all these performances, activism, activities in town. What about the rest? You get, because you see, Echizam activists in Amanje, when I went to parliament with Mayanja in 2014, our first appearance in court, we had the biggest turnout ever in City Hall court. It's like a small court, but I can assure you, okay, fine. Oh, we were appreciated because literally appreciating an activist is not giving them money or what. It's even standing with them. Babanga police. Have you checked on them? Have you come in court? So that tomorrow, Rogers Aja. So, honestly, you also lose guts. You lose guts, and that's the non-performance. and will continue unless the opposition does its revision very well. Nabalabe wano in Zambia, when was it? Saturday or Sunday? Friday. If they can sustain that, we'll be good to go.
Sustain what?
Sustain that working together, that bit of togetherness. I don't want to come around with my opposition in Uganda. Let me reserve my comments. But we pray that they work together. If they do, some of us will now also come back and hit the streets, because I know that all the pain is now with us outside Uganda.
Okay. So we have looked at mostly the cause of the non-performance of activism has relatively been because of the people who are ahead of them, who are supposed to be making the strides, at least who are in positions that can shake things up and cause a little bit of change. Do you think there has been direct reasons that their progress has kind of stagnated? That activism, one, does not make any change. Nowadays, even if you go to the street, they will be till you go home, nothing changes. Even if, in fact, most people will not even understand why you were there in the first place. Will just know that there are people on the street, they beat them, and they arrested a number of them. So we do not know. Do you think there are some hindrances to the progress of activism, and how do you think that can be done better?
I repeat, ignorance is not just in a word that is just there. It's a practical thing, that our citizens are ignorant. So the opposition, myself and the rest of the activists, even you, the media, is to ignite the citizens by informing them what it means by, first of all, governance. I repeat this trending video where this young boy said, the government in the like, how do you tell me that the government took my money? When after grazing, someone was got, they gave me my money. Even ignorantly, his ignorance was backed with confidence. That confident ignorance. He even pulled out the Kawanuki and some coins and said, "Tans, like, don't you see the money I made after grazing the cat rather than goats?" So you cannot tell me that the government takes the money. So one asks, how many young people in this country have that reasoning? That someone will finish school and says, Katimagara government is a pomolim. You get? And they cannot attribute obula ly'emirimu ku government. Awujeba ninga basoma. Atebe kituuse ku bantu abasoma ku buta, for another word, kukulaga obutategeera abo n'obutamanya nekiyitirira. Kubanga ono ataasoma aba n'ekyokwewozaako n'ekyokwekwasa. Munnange ate sibitegeera, because bw'oba onyonyola GDP Rogers bw'ogitegeera, but what about your distant cousin atagenda ku ssomero? Takutegeera GDP amanyiwa muzungu balina gye bamujjana amata bamuteeka bagamba GDP. Ate ne bana abaasoma, because wetunyonyolera obuntino ettima lyammwe abaasoma lyemulaze eri bannayuganda ne mu kubinyonnyola okwongera okulaga abataasoma tebalina bitegeera. That's why budget yammwe baba gisoma. Nze nabeeranga ekyakwerebiranga babasoma budget nga bakwata aka radio fena ku lunaku tetwasomanga. Okay, fe abalimu nga abategeeramu tetwasomanga tebasomesanga. We would come to school niti batusomesanga
ne mutula muholo ne babategera akale
yawa gwalaba batwala yerwe ngumala bahoro twatulanga
mu
kisaawe kati tusirika edi masa nategerera kati njagala between me and you mugamba ogwo mutima gw'abasomesa abo bwe batyo gukyaliwo, to be honest with you.
Gamba muzisala bakwe waffe nga batutegera radio tuwulirize ji
ate kati mwaliwo
tebyali
bwe nagenda bombo ame secondary olunaku lwa budget ngera Mubarak Sawo nga our head teacher nga baoganaze gamba bate tuteekwa kati nga bajamba prefects. You get? Okuliza ki budget yadde twabitegeeranga nenga head teacher kimutwalira okutegeera okutunyonyola gamba munnange sukaali bamwongezaako kati babadde agula senji katugeze 10 bongeddemu 10 oba amafuta parafini bamusanzeko senji meka. I want you guys ne opposition nanti katuli ku bantu abasoma ne mubaire banna mawulire. You get? Era mutunyonyola mu ngeri ya GDP bitategeera. So nituba nti abakyasiza okulya mu nsi yaabwe
ati namawulire yategeera GDP naye akyogeranga bwe bwakisanze
abakyasinze okulya mu nsi yaabwe olukwe you get yemmwe banalaba ku mbaawo mwe mukyasinze okukola ki because ono omuntu ng'oli omwana gwe nibagambye onegamba muno ye sente aziina mu musawo wandibeereza muno omunyoyo nomugamba olaba ddala 1500 zigula ki you get naye bwe obusente bugamba nti baaba okubbyeko obuyina value yaabwo tegenda kukola ki nti obanga oyagala kati gwandi ne bwomugamba mwezino sente oziraba oyina kwongerako siringi 1500 ziwere 3000 kati zino gavumenti zeewa omwana wo bw'aba ali ku ssomero mu myezi emeka ekitegeeza myezi 3 buli mwana bamwe siringi 10,000 buli ki buli mwezi kati bw'ovaayo gavumenti yadde omwana bamwe siringi 10,000 buli mwezi atwala eggwanga lino ate ye buli lunaku afulumya bwezi abo abafunye obusungu obubanja. You get, that's how we can change this country and do activism that is really beneficial, that can also be impactful. We are going to have our GDPs and what? Katinga supplementary. Government is supplementary. What is supplementary? Gama muna Uganda and supplementary kitegeeza nti ono muli wa kasente kamwe ke yasaba kamu weddeko nagamba munyongere.
But
that is how you do what? Like ndio sasa tumanyira. Chogamba zitwamuwadde mu myezi tezinaweza de myezi 3 akomye otumwongere yabafe azikozesa ki. Nekimubi government supplementary ne opposition supplementary. That is where we lose it as opposition and as activists.
But does activism entirely mean going to the streets and doing those street actions?
I began by saying, you know, activism goes with civic education. You know, you must come and jump start. Bakutaka kutegula motoka what is starting. No jitegula. Ati kutegula osoka notegula bana Uganda bategeera because if bana Uganda, buli bana Uganda singa bategeera governance. Tekitagisa gwe faida kugenda gamba omuntu munaje kukuba. No way. Omanyiti ne kuulya salama no busabala ziti busabala road muju kanti baliko bali launchinga before covid.
Yeah,
you remember?
Yes.
Ba contractors ne bagamba mu covid abakutemu bakali launchinga emirundi mingi naye go gamba singa banagana bali bamanyiti bana Uganda ngabo nabazukufu bategeera governance bandikide ku machane bekalakase ko bali kola tekitagisa muntu kumugamba ko mujje gosooka yo in fact bucha ku machanga buli mu yasuzaalo woza ebizibe muluma mugero kusanga mwesanze ku street. So activism, street is the climax. Street should be the climax. Either tukoze petitions zi but tukoze bina biganye tukoze meetings zi byalo biganye.
But don't you think most activists in Uganda start with the climax before kutandikire no once?
I think some naye much as abamu bajja ku climax nga bagamba ku streets, some of the causes for which people should do activism olumuzi bangaza nga bolaba emergency nga bonalaba nti engeri gyotwala omulwadde wa kabenji casualty wa accident si yomuni wa malaria speed gyebamuvugamu kubafunye accident yanjawulo ne waki wa malaria nabwe ekyo wabeerawo events ezibaawo nga tezigenda kulinda kati kubanga ojja kungamba muze ne mayanja ekyatwala ku parliament 2014 tutandikira waggulu waliwo ekiba kitalinda tujja kuddaawo abasajja batandise okugaba n'omugabo omunyago bewa milioni 5 katugeze oba 3 oba 2 byagula motoka biki nenga masomero temuli brother malole temuli dagala tebasoma nogamba kacheke tujje kuba olukiiko lw'ekyalo nedda awate obeera convinced and forced okubalumba ku street because kibeera kisuse ogw'omulamuzi.
Njagala okulowooza nti ba activists mu Uganda oba tebali a bit organized. I think don't you think wetaaga okubeerawo organization mu groups za activists abali mu Uganda nti when we see a particular group on the streets we know something is not right with the parliament. When we see the Normans and the Mayanjas, we know the judiciary hasn't performed. Somewhere yao beina cheyakoze chobusiru oba baina nga. We need to have those organized groups targeting a particular the group of the government, like Tumanye. And this particular group is particularly for the executive and the judiciary. But tubalaba ku street Tumanya, waliwo kye bakoze ekikyamu. But tulaba a certain group Tumanya environment, there is something wrong with it. So we know that naye tujja kulaba no mani leero ali ku parliament bayisize teeka ery'ekisiru Computer Misuse Act. Tulabe no man the next time. Tebajja gasima. Kati tulabe ba muli ku human rights violation. So what exactly is wrong with this people?
Challenge way, of course, I don't want to sound like most of us. Buli kimwe kyatuli bulemi ku Museveni. ne government nyine okumanya bwebanga yo kenyini nga yo nyini yatabuka kati nabagiwakanya bo benyina tena bo confusion babanga abajewola like they copy from where, because in other countries it's true nti ba environmental activists bajja kola ku crusade nga yawe ngera kimanyiddwa nti bano bavuddeyo ku kyaki
ku environment.
Then mu such a crusade beyazike solidarity ya n'abali abalala who will come and say we associate with their cause. You get? I will challenge weri negative wano tichikuba versatile akuba rap akuba reggae akuba kadongo kamui. It goes back to the ignorance of all of us. That is why you will not honestly see Tumuhimbise no man nga ndikubya chi mtagenda bya for sure, because nze byo sibitegeera ate kati mbangi kulimbi naye bwongamba in solidarity I can perhaps come, but bokuchiba kuchogerako njakirekera tulyakira let's say council Aaron nabala, even just like in law we shall know bano ba lawyers, they are advocates so much into human rights. We know bano ba criminal law, we know bano bali mu byanfuna commercial law itumanya naye bwosanga buli kamu yagala kakuba at the end of it all,
like the activists bakakwata recently omwali Hamisi and the rest, they had their points: human rights violations, environmental, the land grabbing in Hoima. So you see
now it goes back to all of us as leaders of some movements to continue doing our civic education, because even in the principle of activism and movement building, you must have a very clear message. Don't mix messages. Don't. Honestly, I will not be on the street nganze leader gender based violence mukubanya abachala. I mean, I think parliament, it doesn't make sense. We need to go back to the drawing board as movements, social movements, to train people that once you are hitting streets, you even need, I think, a maximum, if you can't avoid it, a maximum of 2 messages on a placard, because that's when your message really comes out very, very, very well. Otherwise, you will mix and even confuse your, first of all, your would-be ally, or even the oppressor whom you want to communicate to. You get? You'll confuse things. So literally it goes back to all of us as young people and as social movement members to train our colleagues and empower them, so that, and it shouldn't be just because you are annoyed. You should go to streets when you are okay, even when you are annoyed, but when you are ready and prepared, because it is also likely that they can host you even on some TV or anywhere and ask you some question to explain about why you were in the street and you
cannot explain it. Yeah.
Most of them shy away.
Because it's that training word, it's echo. I can assure you, if you parade them to any of them to explain what echo in full. In full, yes. What it stands for, you'll be shocked. No, but most of them don't know. Not, by the way, with due respect, not even simply us as activists, even that parliament itself. Do you know that parliament, you might find ngojeko constitution speaker parliament jeko as a parliamentarian nga onaku lwe asembo jiko atako yo MP lwe onaku lwe yayira nga jikutte. So it's becoming a general disease, and that's why Museveni is taking advantage, because that man reads, that man researches. Na ye yadde amagezi ge gonna ebwe agakwata ayita agakozesa birungi byalina gakozesa ye agakozesa to manipulate all of us. You get? There is no person in this country, and much as we don't like this man, that is sober, that takes time on issues nga Museveni, which opposition doesn't do. We were arguing here with you, Rogers, with the Council Kato, that your parliament, sorry, your constitution still has a movement system as a system of governance in the country. Kajaga kunga opposition mwegundi bajisoma bajisolise. Wabo constitution is bayina tekalimu. You get? The same parliamentarians lokwa bachifunamu a right to recall a member of parliament is only active, is just subject to movement system of governance. That you go parliament wa MP wa mwene wakola ebitagasa biti ate musobola kumujjayo okujja konga Uganda eri under
a single party.
You get under movement system is it there. kati wengama eno nga batero gamba abatu nafa aba government bonna be bamu, so for sure how would you convince me bonna sibe bamu? You get? So literally we don't read. Osanga yade okay benza kwanga sibe bamu ninga tebamanyi
ngabakasoma tebakategeera.
You get? But it's there. I mean, your constitution as amended, it's there. Movement system of governance. A right to recall will only work in the movement system. And which movement stopped in 2005, good years ago. Parliaments have changed. You have had, so many parliaments. As in term of parliament, this and that and the other. Still happens. So nti kati bo bali abajja 2 kali baiti bategeera nnyo tweta be 11 mukaina bonga tebategeera ntabe 16 nabonga tebategeera mukaina be 12 nabo bambi tebategeera era kigenda kugwa kekisanja ngate bategedde you get. So there is, the problem is beyond Museveni. So we are part of the problem because we don't read, we don't understand. Even when we read, we don't understand. Even when we understand, we are not courageous enough to do what.
No material was civil politician and activist. Don't you think the politicians in the opposition abali mu parliament betaga muka training ka activism? Nti abamu bagenda bambi nadala kati ngeno wevo yabaddewo yalesa abantu abatali na experience nenga bali mu parliament nga bali ku card za opposition nenga tebamanyi n'ekyokola. Don't you think mwetaga mu okuba training amu kukoko bikibe bayino kola what they should be doing bikibe bayino okwogera kala abamu tebabimanyi.
Ate kizibu kyetu afuna mu Uganda abantu basuubira mbu obuvunaanyizibwa a position office ejja n'okutegeera. You get?
It's true.
This is the point, Roger. Our people think mukasita nfuuka MP ng'obwongo obwakataala bwe lalinina nga nti nkyali eri ekyebunkutuko obe ekasuta yime oba wa nti bw'olayira biki muno bukyuka era kyova olaba ne mu ntebe bamweyo mu maaso kibubiri honorable ogamba kikyoyogera ku nsonga eno. Forgetting that there should be a process through which even when one has become one nga akubya akajja afuuse kyandibadde kitukakatako nkati ng'abantu aba experience abaludde mu parliament nga basemuju n'abalala okugamba nti mwategedde fine okulaya tulayidde naye wabeerawo orientation bitugenda obayisaamu wano bakola batya omuntu akunyigiza okola otya. You get? Maybe tetwandifunye bukuubagano bwa zaake ne speaker maybe tetwandifunye speaker naye atabitegeera. You get? Because apersonalizinga buli kimu. Maybe tetwandifunye namuganza Anita things maybe kati bw'omaliriza naye kati orientation yaawo parliament etuula lwakumeka tukola tutya akasente ndowooza okasayininga otya. Maybe that is bw'oyagala fuluma ebweru speaker tomunyiiza bw'oyagala fuluma ebweru speaker tolina munyiiza olina okubeera nga you are happy with Anita Monga every now and again olina okumuwaana mami kyasaze okutegeera mu nsi muno nga Museveni onakola nayo nogamba asinga Yesu entegeera yeemu neya Yesu nga Betikama byagamba. That's when you do what you will survive. So it goes back to all of us that civic education. Kubanga civic education singa ffe twamukola nga bali mu activism ne opposition n'ebirala nti n'omwana agenda okwesimbawo already nga yategeera dda. You get? Tekimugwako bugwi. Ate n'omulonzi naye baba alonda naye talonda lwa kiweevu. You get? Then you would be far because I can assure you there are some opposition who are very useless members of parliament and there are some very few also in NRM who are useful. You get? So it means now when it comes to reasoning wano obwongo bwe omuntu asobola okusirwala yadde wa opposition tekiriiko muno mu opposition muyita asobola kusirwala mbuyo allergic mu kusirwala nino asobola okusirwala ate kiriiko muno owa NRM yita asobola kuba mukona ntugezi tutwalako ga mu maaso. It's a 50-50 for each one of the parties in that house.
naye nga tetunagenda kuwumula mukonze ndowooza nti walibaddewo intention eyo creating links between you the leading activists and the members in parliament because there are things that you can't take to the streets but they have the opportunity to front them on the floor of parliament. Do you have any links like with those people in parliament nti oba nammwe mugenda kusituka mugende ku street n'abamemba ba opposition abo tebatugasizza ne mugenda ne mwekalakaza Because I think mwali badenga meeting and then you share ideas and then maybe ebitagenda ku street babi fronting eri.
There are some few, for me I will speak authoritatively to some of the demonstrations I have participated in. When we demonstrated against the 105 million at a time, that's 2014, June, we had, Semujunganda on behalf of FDC passed a policy that to them, as soon as they joined government as the leaders of the government, that these vehicles would be given out on a loan basis. The same policy that applies in Rwanda.
Even in Kenya.
Even Kenya, okay. You get, so for us, Semuju, he had an alternative policy as FDC, on behalf of FDC as a political party. Now, yeah, conditions, terms and conditions, because fine, it's a good policy, but can it be applicable when these guys are not in government? You get, JZD, there are some alternative policies that are good, but they can't be implemented. And Museveni, with his big-headed way of reasoning and taking things, no matter how good the opposition policy is, he will never implement it. And there are so many wonderful things. That does not also mean that there are no government policies which are good that opposition will also address if that is what they can do to oppose them. I don't know whether this theory is interpreted well. What will be policies and nungi enyo opposition is by nazo. Niyo luokuba nti government yo etwala bano nga bayekera kyovola babagamba about oluvuganya government. Now if we highlighted the word about the oluwabula, still with advice. It's as if it's up to you on whether or not you take my advice.
It or you don't.
So we need to have an amendment which says, I was trying to discuss with the colleagues that there should be an alternative way of doing things. That you ask, okay, Kataha, with your team, where is your policy on education? You ask opposition, where is your policy on education? Then have a neutral ground, like a committee, for example, a committee on education, to peruse. Now, between me and you guys, even the committee of education, I am sure. Let us go through policy education. I mean, so that's the challenge we have. But there should be that way. We should introduce that way of doing things. So you begin saying, okay, this policy doesn't work. Maybe we can substitute it with this one. Government, you were excited. You merge it with the other one. And then you come up with a government policy. Because once we say government, it's now both amalgamation of now opposition ideas and the ruling party. And then the country would move forward.
It's not an election manifesto that one is
now you see, now you see. But you know, you get, because literally in other countries you would have all manifestos. Yeah. I think it was, I don't know whether it was Nyerere. It should be, I think, if I'm not mistaken. If it's not Nyerere, I think it's Mandela. I would say, okay, fine. Was it 190%? What did that 10% say? As in, okay, fine. Then you read through, what did these 10%? And before you know it, to us as an opposition, we would all of us be here to serve the country and wait for the next election. Like, for example, I want to credit both the BSG and I think under the former agenda of FDC with the NRM, when the BSG said in our manifesto,
graduated tax.
Tugenda gujjawo bana abakopi ne bajja ne bakoppa ne bakola ki ne bagujjawo. So what about so many
tebakopa batwala
ne bagujjawo. So what about so many other alternative policies that the parliament has? If those were read through, not all of them are good, some of them are also selfish, that naye, what if the government had in fact there would be an independent commission or something on manifesto implementation, something like that. Nitubayiza akalulu konna nga kawedde ng'obuuza kyalya kibali oyina. Have you had Katumba anyway?
Katumba oil.
You also bring your Katumba oil. Yeah, you never know, you could have something. By the way, you get. So you ask Katumba anywhere, you bring fena so eyo committee nesoketo maybe for the first miezi meka start to scrutinize, and I think this country would be far. So I need NRM chino chuchi one olimbye how much money is going to take a muyoga, can you account kuzili za soka chote chigenda kola opposition FDC mwali mugambachi AND mwali mugambachi yadite mafuno ya the prefect. You get, then this country would be far. And that's, for me, that's the activism and that's the politics I would want this country to have, even if not if, even when we are in power. Not if.
You have people, like you mentioned, the people, it is in the opposition. So even when sometimes people will just say no to particular things because they're coming from some side, not because necessarily they are bad ideas. But we are going to go in for a very short commercial break, ladies and gentlemen. We are going to come back in the next hour and we'll talk a little bit about, I think we have to some extent exhausted some issues of activism, but we'll keep talking about it. But we also want to look at the corruption and the where we stand as a country on how our economy is working. And
it is where we fall, and now we no longer stand.
and how do we think we can try to maneuver that? We have Ghana declared bankrupt last year.
Before you even go for a short break, do you know how much love and brains, love that people had for their president when he was in opposition?
Nana.
For something?
Ado. Yes.
Ado. Do you know how much brains had? I mean, I don't understand what is in the state houses of this whole world. That people tend to leave their brains at the entrance of the state house. I was talking to one of the leading political figures in Uganda, and he said he even no longer wants to, he cannot even pick his calls. They no longer meet. When they used to meet every now and again when that man was in opposition.
So let's go in for a very short commercial break. When we come back, we'll look at how to make sure, to avoid that same kind of scenario, because it looks like we're actually keeping going down the drain. So how do we make sure we revamp? We are in a new year. We'll try to find some new ways of doing things if there can be some kind of revamption. Thank
The Alternative Digitalk. Real issues, real talk.
Fellow citizens, following the sequence of events, Uganda seems to be at political crossroads.
I'm not a servant of anybody.
Madam, I know the law.
As such, Alternative Digitalk brings you the Interface Show with retired Colonel Dr. Kiza Besuje.
Let's keep on the same page on Alternative Digitalk,
as he gives you the alternatives on the transition question, rule of law, human rights and freedom, youth inclusion in governance, economic stagnation, as he confirms.
I'll be always here Saturday from 10 a.m. in the morning. Be there.
Don't miss the live discussion on the Alternative Uganda, Digitalk TV Facebook pages, and the Alternative Uganda YouTube channel.
The Alternative Digitalk. Real issues, real talk.
Welcome back from that short commercial break, ladies and gentlemen. My name again is Roger Sturiabwe, And together with Norman Tumuhimbise and Farida Bikobede, we are trying to look at a number of issues, mostly governance related. In the new year, how better can we do things? We are trying to look at what were the causes of maybe our shortcomings in the previous years, and how can we do better moving forward, and which alternatives can we actually present to make sure that some of these spaces actually do serve people as it is. Now, I did promise that when we come back, we're going to look at, talk about a little bit of corruptions. Someone told me on a show earlier last year that every 1 hour, about 1 million is lost in a government institution here in Uganda. And then if you project in 365 days of a year, how many hours are there and how much money is lost in that regard? Now, we have a problem of corruption. We have an anti-corruption unit. We have an anti-corruption unit in the State House. We have the IGG, Office of the Inspector General of Government, which is also
promised to release a list of corrupt officials come February.
In the areas of corruption, and we have a government that is failing to pay salaries of people and administrative costs. Because remember,
it has no finance.
Yes, as we were closing last year, we were telling the local administrations to be frugal in their spending to make sure that the money can sustain them for the longer period than projected. What do you think we can do with corruption?
I think one of the greatest solution we can have, which is slightly definitely tricky, is to have an overhaul change of government. Kubanga ndakwesa kati Uganda ngafa Muganda siri mulyanaka ziri Muganda gere ate monna budde nti government je tuyina ngekulemberwa mukulu Museveni tetwagala
tebagala nga Abaganda nga Bannayuganda
kati mukulu Museveni watatwagala ne banne tatuwagaliza. You look at these things. Tosobola kuwagaliza muntu gotakola ki? Gotayagala. Mukulu Museveni singa atwagala ne government ye yandwadde agaliza Bannayuganda okulakulana n'okubeera obulungi. Kati olwabino ebiriwo byonna n'olaba bwe tuvuya mu buli kimu ekisooka okimanyi okitegera nti ono abantu bakulembera tebabaagala. Nabwe kityo tebabaagaliza.
Naye yandibanga atwagaliza. Operation Wealth Creation.
Awe tujja. Corruption eno tuyinza girwanyisa tutya tuddayo ku basics ebyokusomesa munnansi ategeere nti weewaawo tutegedde nti abatutwala tebatwagala ate batwagaliza naye kati naffe tuyambeko fe abeeyagala ng'ate era tweyagaliza tusomese Bannayuganda nti bye twagala ne bye tweyagaliza
tubyagalizisa abalala.
Naye ate era theory y'emu ng'era mukulu Museveni ne gavumenti ye batatwagala ng'ate batwagaliza naffe tuyinza kubaagala na kubaagaliza. You get okubeera mu bukulembeze nti tusomese Bannayuganda. I was trying to make some research okuyambako Bannayuganda and twabyogerako dda some of the dialogues twafuna nti bwe babanga Uganda ekyafiirwa abakyala 16 buli lunaku. Abamanyiddwa nakyo tutegeeza Bannayuganda, those are the known
ababadde mu ddwaliro
abasobodde mu ddwaliro ne barecordinga. Kale katugende n'abo abatono. Mu mwezi mufiirwa abakyala 408. 1 month. Mu mwaka mufiirwa abakyala 5760. Are you getting these things?
Yes.
Kati eri miliyoni gye wagambye gye bannaffe bana batatwagala ate nga tebatwagaliza gye babba buli lunaku bw'okiyonyola omuntu mbu yeemu zezimu ku nsonga lwaki bana abakyala bafa awo Munnayuganda ajja connectinga nakyo. You get? Naye ate mu kwagala ffe nga ffe abeeyagala era baagaliza eggwanga lino ebirungi. Nze in my analysis sikoma kugamba muno Bannayuganda ekisanja kimu ky'emyaka 5 Uganda ebeefiiriddwa abakyala 288. Emitwalo emeka? 288. Kati kankimenyemenyemu ku bekasitayime ne wamwe Rumuli ne Kashagama ne Kyazanga ne kasitayime babitegeere nti gino emitwalo 288 gye tufiirwa ekisanja kimu.
Temulimu babulwadde balala
bano bakyala bokka bafa nga bazaala. You get? Kati kankikwanguyize nti kitegeeza eggwanga liba lisigaza abasemwandu emitwalo 2 mu 8 semwandu kitegeeza ki nti abantu abali depressed olw'abakyala bwabwe kubanga baafiira mu ddwaliro nga bazaala olina already sure deal ennamba etaliko kyebuuzibwako 2 mu 8 nti katonda singa aba ayambye abakyala abo abaafa 2 mu 8 ne baleka abaana nga abaana 16 tebaafa oba olina obwana bumulekwa 2 mu 8 abamanyiddwa kye tuliko singa nga buli mukyala yafudde akaana ke yakoze eki
kasigadde yafudde nga yabadde first born nga talina balala.
You get this whole thing with how we should interpret this message to our citizens abagalize eggwanga lino ebirungi kati 2 mu 8 gikwate kubafudde ogiteekeko basemwandu ogiteekeko bamulekwa ate ne maama ne taata w'oyo omwana eyafa nga azaala naye tomwerabidde. Are you seeing how this depression, stress and forever problems affect this country? Kati gwe kibaleemu kati buli ekitegeeza buli lunaku Museveni lwabeerawo ku gavumenti ne NRM buli lunaku omanya nti alina shuwadira abantu batta because of his negligence n'ebirala shuwadira buli lunaku 16 abatandikirwako betukola ki tunada kwa malaria you had research yagamba was it 1 second or per minute wali omuntu afa you remember
and is the one who gave us those statistics
ye kenyine the beauty ayina courage jana bitugamba naye ate ffe babigamba tufuna kakisa tetuyina bo malirivu bugamba okay fine tubitegedde tuvire kubanga gwo omu ku nsonga lwaki bakola ki ate tukyogera. So you cannot fight corruption unless our citizens have understood how corruption does what affects them. Tudde kumwa basoma mwabasoma mulina ate ennaku y'amaanyi nti buli mwaka babafulumya mmwe emitwalo
ogenda okola ebweru okuba ekyero
abavudde mu mayunivasite emitwalo gya mwanga buli mwaka era guno gwawedde ku bafulumizaaga abono tetutaddeeko abakolamu bambutombaaya abasomera ebweru abo temubogera abo tetubogerako tetubamanyi tuli kubawa emitwalo ameka ddayo olabe emirimu gyekuriyetinzeewo out of emitwalo ameka ne mwegyo emitwalo gya mwana era mummwe mulimu era ekitundu ekinene ennyo ekiri unemployable. It's one thing lacking work but another thing emirimu kubanga weegiri naye don't call as in tobitegeera mwasoma kimu luzungu you get kati eyo ennamba nayo weeri naye efuukira eggwanga ekizibu because system yatandikira wano mu kubba ssente abasomesa ne batasomesa n'abasomesa bye basomesa temwabitegeera mwasoma kimu kuyiga kuyita bibuuzo funa degree kuba kajambo ne gawundi gisambe gikube etteke ogambe muzeeyi olaba degree yawe n'agireeta you get
that is how they speak
you get when you muzeeyi degree yawe n'ogireeba it is here then muzeeyi n'atakubeerera mubi nakola obulungi obwekitandikira kabaala nywesha omisaba namuzi bwabeera kasenta abalamuzi ate nyowe mutabana nyine lawyer nyine y'omushomesa nyine y'omushaho you get kati nemwetunuulira omwezi gwagwako ng'okwera muzeeyi nyowe rent y'abakaali n'atunda kataka. So until we now understand and dissect nitusalaasala corruption eno tusalasala tujja kukigambo corruption tukiyita obubbi era kino ekigambo kyogamba nno government yagamba I don't know report mbuno buli dakika buli saawa waliwo emiliyoni ebula guys miliyoni tebula tesaanuuka as in it doesn't evaporate
ebuliraawo
kati eno gyetumanyi luli twabagamba waliwo bankyazako in one of your shows ne bagamba ate kati mwemuba lino mu cash eno tangible gye mulabako waliwo endali zibula mu kuteekawo nitese kooti n'otakola leero si lumu si bbiri it's a Monday ne bwe tugamba no ambushinge all these ministries akarashwe ministers abamu bakyali Bulaaya bali mu kwesokkola bunyama bali mu kaholiday temutubuguta nyamaka gwakatandika very many kyebogera nina otukedde nnyo kati no wiki yonna nfu Are you getting these things? Kati bwana malokoma bagambe kati bwana malokoma conference workshops. You see, we are trying to harmonize. How do we open that? How are we planning? Before you know it, who said, I think it was also some other report, ntino bogendo okubala ennaku zetu kola. Government, for example, public servants zebakola. These are even below 30% of the all working hours or working days in the whole year. Kati ezo tumanze tufiirwa na zigenderawo because bogendwa minister wa PS ngataliyo leero kitegeeza bwandi badde okola enkya togenda bikola kwangu olina okuddayo. Are you getting that logic? Yeah, some media house much as nayo njira bange so much linked to government bali bakola bayitaka report nga balaga essaawa mu Uganda zafiirwa mu traffic jam. You remember? All that is as a result of corruption because egulo beera olufu balimu ebinnya second zomala n'obudde bwonona yabadde atuka mu office ssaawa 3 otuuka 5. You get? So bwe badde serving between ssaawa 1 ne 3 ojaba serving between 5 n'omusanvu. Kati nabo be bandi badde baservinga. I don't know whether you get to this whole sequence of madness and how this whole world gets destroyed because of some things that we don't dig deeper to dissect for a common citizen to understand. So corruption is going on the Twitch so rogirwanyisa nga tunyonyodde bannayuganda butya bwe bakosa. Awo kibira automatic baja kwenda bakulembeza batuufu baja kera kugombolwa nzeze emyoga like our citizens now. I don't know whether Nerwengo bateekayo mmeka even when you know our citizens may not be in position to go and ask, okay, this is a college. Banabana we have always had discussions inti bamugamba bado bikakolo papula gusayini kasoba cyako siginichi asoka na kuzikutera ku meza no tunulira no mutunulira no tunulira kawo noli mukuba nali kukuba noli kuba kusenda no so kwenya mumutwe no ifula actually banga bana bolo soka I will not take the money go. Okay, next no why not next go? What should I do? You sign here anyway. You get anyway let me sign. I'm nange tunakola chi. Will you sign or you won't? Ngagama milioni 15 ezakagundi ka group kamwe bawadde musanvu if you're lucky,
but you account for 50.
You get? But because now obunaku bukuyonse butaba sigini oteeka keeri enkambwe ng'erina visible n'enamba y'essimu sako n'enamba ya taatawo eyiyo ne ya mama ne ya mukyala so that tusobola to prove mugwa kola n'ekifaananyi bakikusaba lumba basabanga passport photo ngamba nze njire kureeba nti mulandeebe nzagenda okulaba kati mugenda kundaba nze nayita n'ekifaananyi kyonna nga kiramba ate bwe weekwasa mwezi mumirawo so ajali passport photo nagirako ne full photo tewabaawo he prepares for the worst case scenario bwe basaba ekifaananyi ekinene what do I do tebanyima sente. That's how
whose responsibility is it okubeera tusomesa ba citizens on how corruption is affecting them? Is it the government? Is it the opposition? Mulimu gwa fefenna whose responsibility is it?
Nekino kitukola si kitono. Era bagambanga abalina amatu bawulire abalina amaaso balabe. You get? Tukola naye the level at which we are working isn't felt. You get? Singa ono tusaddewo show y'okwemansula kwogera ku lugambo you would see so many viewership. You get? Nekati bino ebyamakulu temubiwadde nnyo makulu ate bitalina makulu bakola ki? Ne bawa nnyo amakulu. So I think for us, but that does not bar you from continuing with your work. Because bwe munaabikola n'omulala ajja kukopera ku mmwe ne NGOs alikire ku mmwe n'abalala because I want to believe bwe mbinyonyola kati si bwe nabinyonyolanga 2014. You get the difference. Era bwe mbiraba kati bwe nabirabanga 2014 si bwe nabirabanga 2016. So it's gradual. Lwakuba sometimes kitwala obudde abantu okubanyikiza enjiri ne bagitegeera nti singa amawulire mu tulaga 10 billions swindled batugambe 10 billions swindled by Tumuhimbise no man. This money is an equivalent of doing A, B, C and Z. Do you get the logic? Namwe banamawulire mamuyambyeko so gamba bugambi yatubba yatubba mmeka ani yatubba zandikoze eki awo tutambula. So also even you the guys in the media, your reporting is very key. You get? Buli kimu bwolaga minister nga zize mu milito bwofuna speaker wo nga agabudde ekirabo kya birthday mwebaze naye bwe wabeera question mark babuze nizo zavuddewa tugambe speaker afuna bweziti mu banga yakabana mu parliament akoze bweziti cyane mutwalidde banga bwete okusonda sente ezigula motoka you get then you will have helped us Museveni waba tambula nga inako motoka zino zonna toyi yabasawa baganda n'abanyankole zino tuye mugambe okay padde million I had Dr. Bisije say one nga mugamba million ibiri or something per day or something like that ogambe zino ebiri azimalira ku mafuta akola kino na kino na kino naye ate zano dizikola kino na kino na kino singa abatambira motoka katugeze nga 3 oba 4 not that I like Kagame too much, but that man I think his convoy is around 4 or 6 vehicles. Around 6 vehicles, that man. You get 6. Naye wano olumuozi bala obera mu nnimiro ogenda okudduka okutandika okubala nga zakatambula ko ngaana. Ngina utandika okubala buto. Nalaba convoy ye Kenya. N'etya namu. Africans.
Our Speaker of Parliament has a bigger convoy than probably the President of Rwanda.
You get that is where the problem, because gobana abantu bowereza obulungi botabba okay wagate wabba lwaki obeeko as in obeekweka. In fact I think it's Museveni alone so far that I know in this country that has okay maybe because it's armored or whatever ina moto kitaiti tinted naye okutandikira ku kansala mu Uganda buno my dear moto you get but kati I mean why are you hiding yourself lwaki weekweka tetutegera bamuli watakola ki watolimu ekizambu nawe obuweereza abo eri abantu in fact n'aba opposition bennyini motoka zabo ziri ki
ziri tinted yes
ate gwe yeri etya
ate nze bagambye nze onovunaanyizibwa bwewampa nze n'ekibiina kyenkulira nze n'ekibiina kyenkulira omumanja ki nze omumanja ki nze ntambuza n'ebigere naye waliwo n'aba opposition asobola kukira downtown. You get that's where the problem is, as in we must go back to the basics. First of all, do civic education. And you guys, I think, I don't know, maybe internally we would discuss, and you have maybe specific shows or programs, particularly for that. Breaking down governance, leadership, corruption, and the rest.
Wetubera ne specific shows nga zikola particularly that era tetusigaddemu baasoma nga tubirese wanene because kati
enjawulo temuyina obwasoma bwammwe okusoma kwammwe mwasomerera in addition n'ekino nti yadde twagala abantu because naawe kwati bwobanga osobola okufuna show katugezi ya ssaawa 2 mu mwezi katugezi nabyo abantu 100 maybe abantu abo 100 oyina already because choba chusizaako n'endowooza yaabwe y'ebintu kati tujja kugamba mbake fine anti mwasoma nnyo mukati mubeera temuwuliriza mawulire muggalewo mugende mukati kimukalakaasa ate kati mwe mubyonoonyi. So for me my argument about bano batwasoma bano ba musibatayi ngeno musibatayi gye bali bano ba musibatayi nti kozesa obwa musibatayi bwo okubaako kyotereza muki. If you are a lawyer and you're an advocate genda owuliriza abantu awo katugeze the same line. Bwobanga oli musomesa somesa tokuba bajitanga tokuba ndobo. That's for me, that's the point. Bwobanga oli muna mawulire gasake gawulirize nga bwe gali nicho tugamba embata byamize sabuni tekinayo kigenda tuyambira gwene embata byene sabuni embata yagubye koko those things. So let us perfect what we are doing for purposes of developing this country positively. That's from me.
So that is a role that we all play as citizens.
It's a collective responsibility for all of us. Kubanga nawe obeera omulimi fine twagala peneti nego bogana onoge mwanyi nga za green nga tezinakala for sure. Are you doing a service to this country?
Cheni nawo kye kintaasa.
Now you see. Now you see. Are you getting the logic? Like all of us must be. You have seen people with who sell fruits. Ntibagenda banoge emiyembe nga mito. Nebagitindi okutindika makutata omuganda wakita wacho. You get nefene. The taste is different.
Yeah, true.
So the ingredients you would benefit from fene ayayengedde naturally. Sizo ofuna kati gugaya kintu mubakita fene ba miyembe. Basics.
You are corrupting the process.
You already everything everywhere you go. You get my I hope I'm communicating. Kati go kwate emiyembe ejo noginoganga mito nogisimira ekinya nejengera. Omwana najiria wabo banakwa mujuyise. The ingredients that are meant to be received from omuyembo gwengedde naturally. So gendo okufuna. If it's a vitamin C, you'll end up given vitamin nothing because it's not be there. Negwe bobo gwa tebaja gukuseera. You get so buli omu Uganda yalinga yafusa omubbi. You get coffee nogo emwanyi nga sikyali green tezinengera. I mean, when we were kids, you would see people nga bakwata ebijanja bayiwamuko n'amayinja mu bizitowe.
Yeah.
Yeah, logic. Mubone bagera amayinja ne bajinja kutya ne bajinja ata bagamba otyo kilo zinga ni kilo 10 fine. Na kwa senza kilo 10 nengo ina mwaga nga ababe namwe abiri zachi
Zamayinja.
Walabe mwanyi kati bazandika kutaka. So I think developing this country, it's not for position, it's not for 70, it's for all of us. And if we do not, we lose it as a whole.
Speaking of that, when we were beginning, you mentioned that with Museveni's leadership, before, I think between 1980 and
1986 and around 90, I think, around 90. Things began, he got his first opposition in 1987 when Omulongo Waziri Twawula boycotted Parliament at a time, Navayo. The next opposition, I think, to him was so much now between, that was him and now the messages of this world and Mugisha Muntu when he reshuffled the Muntu and gave him the minister and refused, he began to feel the opposition amongst the young lads he had come with. Nayenga eri formo emanyidwe nnyo ya 96 when he set elections. Mukulu Kawanga Simogeri nagamba gweseka tujja kutunka. Then others, began to join. So his graph began dropping, and continues to drop because whatever n'abazukulu, the likes of Bobby Wine n'abalala batandise okugamba gwe muzeeyi oluddewo. You get? So you know that it continues to shrink.
I wanted to compare because last year we made 60 years as an independent country. Now, looking at how we were when we got the independence and how we are, do you think with the progress we have, the changes that have been made, the extent, to whatever extent that is, how do we build on that? Would you say that we were doing better, we were more patriotic before, by the time we got the independence, and now we are not, people are more passive than they were back in the day? The people bantu besulide nyogwa nagamba nti uliwo baliwo that maybe back in the day nga twakafuna independence ngabantu people would stand and say we want this and that and that. Now we are more passive. Tugamba to whom it may concern. How do you think we change, transition to now becoming more patriotic as a nation, as a people?
I think for me, it's a two-way traffic. Ntine numbers. Baganda, no, I think not Baganda. Abazungu bagamba 2 heads are better than 1. Naye ezengerezi mutebazimalayo. You see, you can't simply say 2 heads are better than 1 when the other 2 heads, both of them are blind. Like tebala. Kasa kungamba nno. 2 heads are better than 1 when those 2 heads are literally dull. Sometimes 1 head can be better than 1. In fact, sorry, can be better than 2, better than 4. Kati, one, at a time, there was our predecessors identified their mission on earth at a time. Yeah, the Bible was me. You get? Nibala bango muzungu byabakola tebikwatagana. Nibakora mu mulimu. In fact, all those generations, the generation yaba Museveni, ba Muntu, ba Besigye, in my view, they were more brilliant than we are. Even when they didn't have all these incentives that we have. Those incentives, zituyambye zikoze kyamaanyi nnyo okutwonoona. Nti omwana ajja kudda wali asooka ateekeyo akuwemule ku Facebook yamanyi nti akoze activism kati awo era bampulidde mbavumye. How many likes did I have? How many views did I have? So oba oli awo bitandibaddewo ndowooza ng'era bano kubanga bano imagine people would write letters in Museveni's regime. For us, we have even a capacity of making calls and mobilizing people through phone calls. We have capacities of mobilizing people through WhatsApp groups. I know you are in WhatsApp groups, and I know she's in WhatsApp groups, and so many young people are in WhatsApp groups. You know what happens there? Yeah. Video trending, you get? How many those? That's why I am either dormant or exit at least a minimum of like 1 or 2 in a week. WhatsApp groups. Ono gwe mwamunyiiza ng'akoleye bantu beebamu bw'abajjeeri bwabateeka mweno
mwatugamba tufune belonging so you be part of the WhatsApp group.
So for us tuli mu generation enyumirwa ennyo okubeera WhatsApp admin bw'omunyiza ekizite bwakujjamu nga nonaye adduka ng'akwata bali abeeri ng'ateeka ino owulira asimayanga katugeze of course it's not what happens at Digitalk. If it's Digitalk ajakusaga Digitalk 2 Digitalk 3 the alternative, the actual Digitalk, you know, the reloaded things, you know those things. And I mean, that's where we are. But people do not discuss. How many WhatsApp groups have discussed, guys, about to be let us organize a press conference. They are not there.
No.
Let us organize a sit-down demonstration at Parliament or wherever. They are not there. Bali kubino ani awasiza wajazi pateza bola kati rate wedding meetings. Those are the things that young people are engaged in. Na betting. Shamelessly, I saw this man ask a question for which I thought and believed he has an answer. The president of this country was asking, is he betting employment? I'm like, wait a second, this 80-year-old man, 80-year plus old man sits on a national TV and asks me on whether or not betting is a job. And he does not ask himself, how did betting come on board?
It is.
In his regime, the same man.
Betting companies zina beziwe emirimu ningabera wona ba betting, so it is a tool.
Anyway, ngabe nagabe musebe ntatwagala atawagaliza. He's gambling. Zara. Zara. It is like how he used also to play Zara using beans. The
actual Zara.
Remember the actual Zara. I'm like, indeed this man wamufere. Like, it's just unbelievable of a president. Mbuye kati yakachitegeera. Nga betting kutali mulimu. Nene era birambo bana bagenda mu betting. Bana babo we. Because balina kyakola. Bakomeza bagamba munange afuneyo olukumi ngende esomo ekisajja omuyindi. Njozeemu muyindi nawe batunayawukana n'omuyindi banamukuba. You know? And so why doesn't he say no betting in the country? Kwanga akimanyira bwakyogera bana abulidde emirimu badde bagenda ne babatisa obulamu ku muyindi bajja keera ku ki? Ku street. So we are just misled by the regime that came here in 1986.
Nga tunatera okutuuka ku nkomerero ya show oyogedde no rating aba activists and their achievement no bawa 10%. That is not really a good percentage for you as activists. Ate omuntu yandyagadde okwebuuza what should the activists do to okulaba nti bongezamu enkola yaabwe biki bye balina okukola biki bye balina okudroppinga okulaba nti ate mu 2023 oba in the years to come your achievements and your work is felt. Okubanga ate temukola activities nga tezina, no one is going to feel you like tezina impact. You go to the streets, they take you to police, they take you to Luzila, you get out, nothing changes. Oba mwali mukola activism against the police, it is passed and nothing is done.
I think first of all I will want to re-echo to some of the submissions I made prior. I think nothing activists, we have not exhausted the follow-up strategy on all the things we do. Twoganya okwawula campaign ne activity.
Yeah.
Titwawula campaign ne activity.
So what is a campaign
Kati
and
campaign
what is an activity?
Ne activity goyimirirawo n'ogamba katugeze fees must fall, for example.
That was a campaign or an activity?
It was meant to be a campaign. Because a campaign must be progressive. You begin, temuja gasima. It's a campaign. So under a campaign, you break it down. In our first phase in this campaign, what are the activities that are going to be executed? So when you have a campaign, you have there under activities. And then you come and account, you audit every activity. Chiche mwagalo kujijjamu. You get? Chiche mujjemu, che chiganyi, era lwaki chiganyi.
Yes.
Kati fenna, with due respect to Dr. Besigye, simanyanga ba Bobi Wine, simanyanga bichi, we have had so many collapsed campaigns. Kati we confuse a campaign with activity. For example,
commodity prices is Dr.
It was supposed to be a campaign that up now would be running.
Yeah.
You get? Because after gali kakaga newe gajja kutana ebitaano campaign ene teko kubanga ekyaliwo.
Because gava kusatu.
Kubanga gava kusatu.
Yeah.
You get? Kati wandibadde okuba n'ogamba okay fine tetuganye mugajja ku kakaaga. Naye sabbuuni gwokyali mu sabbuuni yadde amafuta gadda ku ttaano mu something sabbuuni yo yasigala yeeyo.
Ku kanaana.
Everyone is not bothered. So as activists we have failed. And that's why for sure I sometimes wonder, and maybe we continue to pray that by God's grace we shall have such a cocktail of all of us meeting on a drawing board before we hit streets, because literally we have failed to achieve also what we are meant to do. We have disappointed ourselves. Tetwawudde campaigns, tetwawudde activities. Kati campaign activity is just a symbol of a certain campaign. Activism must fall. It should have been a campaign, well researched and worked on. That up to date to be still there. It should be to this level.
I saw speaking of his must fall, I saw the Minister of Education set a standard for fees.
I saw that joke.
Yes.
No, I saw that joke. I didn't even bother commenting about it because I know it's a joke.
He said, for the most part, I think most schools, even including even the nurseries, if it's a boarding, it's above 900,000, literally in a million and above, every one of those. So you can imagine. We also said there was, I think, some kind of, was it a budget? I think it was a report or something that about only 1% of Ugandans earn above 1 million. That is 1%. But also that people have more than one children in school. Yes. So the people who earn less than 1 million, most of them like 500, are going to be paying over 1 million for 5 children. You have 5 children and all of them you're paying above 1 million. And we have the people, this is a government institution that has said, we are setting the standard, this is what you must be paying, especially now that we have come out of a pandemic and people, the economy is bruised and we are that bad. Which now brings me back. Because you did mention earlier that part of the problem is because the people themselves have taken a back seat and decided to be passive about things that are happening. But even when we have the leaders themselves who come from us, by the way, you are saying earlier that government, but who is government?
Museveni, because literally there is no government. He's 3-in-1. He's the parliament, he's the judiciary,
he's the government.
He's a ruler. Because it's a government. Because government now encompasses all these institutions to make it look like or seem or look or act as government, but it doesn't.
A question, it's not a question per se. In my inbox, agamba most activists mugenda kunonya asylum na chigati twabakowa.
I know going to Tukowa because before even I was trying to have a background for which I wanted to apply to answer your question of what activists should do, what is their problems or something. Ni mtani campaign activities activities. And first of all, some of us have made research and worked with these 3 categories of activists, and I have over-mentioned them. Activists abakabanda kabandole babiranga wezi basi zakolanganya mutole eyo kati bazita kabandole ngo mutolo basosola tiketi tula mu dinisa nafulumye mutwe bwati mubojo le kabandole like amana batamze bigere kwakolechi kabamulabe asowodde. So they are activists bambi, and with due respect all of them, waliwo abakola aberimbika mu campaign kosinga tebagitegedde then badam activity basobole kumulaba government emuwechi emwetoki abo gye bali nga go ettooke lya direct lyaki lya jjajja mwami nwebeerawo abakola bino bye tukola nga nalyo ettooke lyagala ayagala lya constituency nkole ground kati buli omwaka gugenda balaba ayagala ground 224 next year bagenda kwagala ground ngayagala bwa kansala bwa MP bwa meya bwa chi LC1 bwe bityo abo nabo gye bali mwabeerawo ba activists nga naye ayagala akikube afunawo empapula z'amawulire zimwogereko ne websites nga bwobwo apyante afuna sayiramu era noonye ettooke ly'amagulu meeru abatono ennyo babaabuwe be baagala okukola activism nti abaana baabwe like my children babeere mu ggwanga nga terimu monster terimu kino kikanga baana you get abo batono kati challenge weeri kwaba abatono ennyo bwe tukola bino tulanga abaana b'ettooke batwambuseeko bavuga ziyoola omudiddi babahonale bwe baweetebeeza mu maaso n'ebifi ebinene ebirimu amasavu ebyenkoko bamwana enkoko nkulu because mb agamba naye mpaaki agamba weewe kanzirewaka nime muwogo you get that's where the problem is kati singa bano abakolerera ebirungi by'eggwanga lyattu abeeyagaliza ebirungi ng'ate batwagaliza nabo nga beeyagaliza babeera bangi I can assure you the government will be changed because we would say fena twagala eggwanga eddungi soke tulitereeze awo tudde mu kalulu era abakulembeza balungi bakikole ki bafuge then you wouldn't have the parliament you have with their opposition you wouldn't have maybe the councils you have you get that's where the problem is so until you deal with these 4 types of activists I can assure we shall be here banji banji kantambule ne Bobi Wine bajja kumpa akalulu kantambule ne Besigye muyirewo mubiri bajja kumpa akalulu bwe ntambula ngene Bobi Wine bajja kunda bankubye ebifaananyi nfuna asayirawo you get so that is where the problem is we need to go back and revise the purpose for which activism was founded we saw how Gandhi would dress you get you get we know how these our predecessors did play activism. The likes of Luther had an opportunity to be even president or even a senator at the time. Naye, unfortunately, he passed on minus, but his dream was yet alone achieved. Like now, of course, much as there are those issues with their racial issues, but they can't be as they were then. So, but tejje mululu guno gwa kweyagaliza nti kankuba kaji kwe press conference nkube meza of memu 7 mule kunamire bandabe we shall remain the way we are. So literally for me we need to go back to the basics of activism that it's for all of us and but most importantly for the future of our children. If we fight the monster now, you not even need a visa. One person who, if I wanted, I think, okay, at least Southern Sudan yandimpadde. Kali adala baganye. Era wachiri Juba bampa. Na I want to be here. I want my country better. Na era okuvega ndogende Sudan. Mbangenze bwene. Ate basicross the border. Onkubira ye migo wano police jibakuba abantu. Na ye ngaba munangi deka bankubire wano. So there wouldn't be need for our young people energetic ogende bulaya. Siwe walungi. But because our activism has been made and interpreted that way. So people do what they do for those 4 reasons. Unfortunately, abantu badde bakola ekino ekirungi ennyo ffe kyetukirizamu ate batono.
Kati bano bakigati tiimu ba asylum seekers bakola ground be bayitirivu.
Definitely. To be honest with you.
Naye sisobola kujja mu activism nekola ground eddoboozi lyange ne liwulikika eri.
Also, kyandikoze, I am one person, I have been in some conferences and argued out that activism shouldn't be, no, I do activism and go back home. It is also okay for an activist to come and contest and become a leader. So as long as you do not throw your principles of activism onto that door of parliament, over that door of council. Chances are, however, that because of the compromise of the entire system, Boja, I have talked to some MPs and they have, out of either excitement or ignorance or out of compromise, told me, you see, Norman, when you come here, you must ensure that you protect the reputation of this house. So your things stop where? Stop there. Kati tulubona mugamba chacha kugamba manyi ate no bagezi bojja gwetenga kuwa rules
of parliament.
You get? Kati gwe kola ngoziri bali. That's the challenge. Nesinga waliwo room mu fine ngo bojja nti bojjo kubireeta obyogerera abo bikolera kati vola abageza ko kubikola nga bazaake bafunye obuzibu ne banaawe. You get? Naye buno obuzibu era obufuna because oli managing a parliament oba that institution kenyini na yale meddwa okukola ekyamuleesa. You get? And before you know it, we have lost it. And then we encourage agereke batatuwagala nga ate batuwagaliza tuyibalekere tubalwanyise bonna tubajjewo then tugende mu ttiimu y'abeeyagaliza nga era baagaliza eggwanga ebirungi era nga nabo beeyagala. I don't know whether this message communicates. Tutegedde nti bagenda kuwa room kukola gwe byali bikuweeseza ground. So mubibalekere mwe mujje mubalwanyise lumu bonna museewo ekijja okuleetawo room eya ffenna okuleeta principles ezali is activism. Yes.
And I was listening to activists and I wanted to ask a question. Omuntu abeera, shouldn't every citizen be an activist ordinarily?
Yeah, literally yes, because I have always trained people and also try to echo, to remind them of how activism is for all of us. Because when you were pushed by your mom, or how all of us, you demonstrate, cry, definitely. How to show that okay, fine, so activism, all of us ought to be activists, be it in churches, Maseka, Basumba, but you see the activism is also, because they also have their way of activism. They will have the activism on Musonde akasente tuzimbe church. He's doing activism as in kubali mera kwenda botazireta ngedadda bakusomera ekigambo, you know, kati ekyo kigambo kyaba kusomera mu church nawe n'okisoma mu constitution ogambe atiko bwete ogamba mwesula bwete gamba waayo era bajja kwemikisa abawaddeyo nawe gamba banja government because buyinza bwamwe, because all of us have a document that we do what? We do follow. We have, all of us have a document that backs our activism. Whereas Abasuba have their document that backs their activism of soliciting money and, you know, hoodwinking or guiding us. It's either way. You get?
Yes.
The same thing now activists should also ask this Musumba or Sabesa Kuzimba Church, ye to say what? That is what? Activism. That's activism. Nawe musaba accountability. Singa tufuna endiga esobola okubuuza agirunda akasente kano ketubadde I can assure you endiga yemu ejja kubuuza kansala sente z'emyonga. You get? Naye bw'otuba nga tosobola kubuuza musumba okumutunula mu maaso n'omutunuza eyiisa ejjogi n'omubuuza gwe seeka wallahi billahi tallahi twasonda akasente k'oggula omuceere gw'abaswahaba ne gukomekeza nga guli wa Hajati Maimuna. You get? There is no way that Indiga will confront a police officer and say, excuse me, you are putting on our badge as a police officer of the Republic of Uganda. This is my right to pray. And for that case, we have secured the space in this hall, in Zambia Sharing Hall. Abide by your responsibilities. Wait for us if there will be any chaos. We have paid for this hall to pray.
And we have notified.
And we have notified. But I saw a very decorated police officer with his broken Uganda saying, Tebatusaba, Lukusa. I looked at Onyango. Was it Onyango? I'm like, what's wrong with this Uganda? You saw him. I mean, I watched him on TV. To him, even when he intentionally considers himself to be ignorant and hide away from the truth, that the sections in the Public Order Management Act, which gave police to first of all give us permission, were annulled. That decorated officer, to him, that's what I told you, that even police officers don't even know which law they follow. He wakes up in the morning and he's like, you basically go back home, go and sleep. Remember how that man would tell you, I have said go back home and sleep, go home. You wonder which law he applies. So there we are. So it goes back to until you have a indiga that can question
the Musumba,
the Musumba and the Sheikha, well, Sheikha to whoever, to account for the money they solicit or contribute. You will not have with the same undiga. Ask the councillor, the president, the minister, or the police officer, PS, and the rest, or even the doctor. Oh, musawa jamu dwaliro, sawa tan. Bambi musawo, bambi webale kuja, like it's 11. And no digger can ask, excuse me, what time is it? Aren't you supposed to be in this clinic, government hospital, for that case, at 8 or 7?
But it is
Najja
because
ngolinga alabe Katonda. In fact, you even
yagenda mugamba ko so bwajja tulina
omwebaza. Sebo mwe manyina okwetonda. Musawo onansonyiwa tukukedde. A patient tells the doctor. Bambi onansonyiwa tukukedde bambi musawo. Mulwadde ki? Ampaye omutwalo gw'ekitabo. Like, do you know people buying used to buy budget, that book. Mbusasula sente z'ekitabo. Bakuwandiikiremu. For sure. So I think this country is nze nantuzeho kasheya kange. Museveni ambaireko zambalira ntemmere mweko kasheya kange nga munange mpasate gyenna mu ggwanga ze mpamvu zino ndikulekere because literally the country is just funny. Weesanga ali mu nsobi gw'olina okwetondera.
Nanti it is because
we are a patient apologizing to the doctor. Munange doctor had nasuse si bulungi obola bakwekukeera kuno naye munange twadde n'ebyo bituwuuba. I was, and not to be shame where I had my COVID jabs from. I was there a week or so ago. After the vaccination, my certificate shows that I was vaccinated once. So when I went there, this doctor was polite to tell me, like, Chief, I can assure you not to badmouth my government, but up now some of us are still demanding the money.
The data entrance?
No, not even. Who's talking about data entrance? Bano benyini abagema mbu bakyabanya bate tunayogerera wa munnange. Yakoseddwa yabanja ne inakadikadiskrema tunayogerera waki bannange, like kubanga manya akalimu kabula ate bwanayo gendo kayinza okugenda. Then ne mubuuza mwangema lwaki
certificate yange
agamba leka naawe kati bino inakufuna kaseti ne muteekamu ne tufuna abaana eyo ne babayambe eyo ministry naye abaana they were overwhelmed. Gweno wakiri mu certificate eraga wangiri mbalwo ne etalaga mu bamugema netaliyo. And the ministry, you see this beautiful woman who Acheng speaking all sorts of good English, and you know the success about the Ministry of Health. You know her words, Bambi, polite as she is. But I don't know whether she knows, even those of us who were immunized, our data,
certificates are not
they are not there. And presumably the country got money to facilitate for everything. So imagine you want to travel, that's another trouble.
Yeah, they cannot get
there is no, because they are not coordinated, you not reach the airport as you want to travel abroad, their airport will definitely show we were immunized once. Do you know what comes?
Not at all.
Kati umanchi stegeza, you guys, kati chicho chogenda kukola. Bwa yagala fuluma, kati ogenda kwera first, because yagala fuluma. Bakugamba kuweka overdose. No, these are practicals. Baby, because ogenda kufirwa keyo ko boyina wo yagala okulaga. Mbu bakagamba yo take kibiri ushu. Gaba kuongera. And you now have had and that's now your life. So these thugs in this government do not bother about the long-term consequences of all their ill management of this country. Kitandikiddewa dokita temwamuwadde ssente naye era waakiri akugemi data entrant abira bana betu bagamba nebino byaki olunaku yiba muyinfaaki they will enter one or two abite. In the long run, Bobongo of Katanaba, the opportunity to get a Kora Kayo at the Kenya, the Waba Kubuza Airport, Bafugema, T. Chechiraga, Bibi, get to Kulaba. Nkozi India doctor. Mumpakarala. Over, Bamim Psawo, Pechetan. Do you get the things?
Yes.
And before you know it, the whole world, and we are there. So, Madam Acheng, Bambi, with your humbleness and the good English, you need to come and tell us what happened to the certificates of those of us that were here. And you remember how her boss was telling people, you know, he comes with, and he tells you no person should access public offices unless this guy is coordinated. As in, are they coordinated? Do they even know that certificates, even for those of us who were double vaccinated, that our certificates don't even reflect anywhere? And the same principle of this country comes and tells you don't access
public offices.
Kati awamaze okuwa paasi askari. Are you getting this whole thing? Kwanga tiri askari again ajja kutundira ekyomutwalo yetunuulira kwa kafaananyi ekiri ewaka. My friend, you mean you are vaccinated? Are you sure? Give me my tea. That's how things will be. So if I know it, and that's how this country is going to be messed. more than it has been before.
Go, Maliriza.
No, Gani, for sure. Jaja Mwami, we appreciate that you are old enough to reason really as old people and give this country hope with your ministers and the entire, the entire leaders of this country. I am one person who believes that much as you can't do better for this country, the best gift you can give this country is to omanye tukakasira nokkiriza nogamba kyo kino kinyinze. All of us who have been sent to kuluzi ne wet catch domola ngweka kusanyusa mama wo nze nkuze nsobola oketa nange obugwagwa twagambanga wa parents mbuze ekidomola nkireeta nakutunuulira natunulira ekidomola nalaba haiti yo natunulira ekidomola nakyo nekimutunulira nagamba gezaako kandi watupulizi omama no baabo yogayoga oyambusa eri manyi twakimanga amazzi almost nga kilomita namba ogenda okuyira nga guno omugongo gukwekasa nokikanyege kati wanje tupulizi omama ekidomola nokyasa ate okumanya ye muzibu ate nakuwa kiboko zaawere kati this is the what is happening with Museveni. Twetisawe tumumenya naye agamba mbatwala. He says simanga middle income status. Ne tumumenya tuwulira tuzitowa tukutawulira this backbone emenya kana yatulemera ko. You get Mr. Museveni teri akutuma kutufiira tuwumuze like tukumenya everything tukumenya because once these things go otherwise
ayizo kutukasuka
ngamba nati bwetudda bwetugenda kumenya nnyo tukanyugawo ate tujja kukwata amatayi because kati Libya Gaddafi yagikukwata nemumenya n'agikanyugawo negenda naye. I hope my analogies are understood and in good faith. You get Saddam Hussein yakwatirira Iraq nemumenya n'agikanyugawo nekola ki. So we don't want this country kukumenya rodo weka dide bibyo nawe weeraba so tukumenye bambi to like like gamba bugambi tugambe sikyasobola kubeetika nga twagamba nga amama mugambi kidoma gamba zima sijja sobola and then we shall move forward as a country. May God bless one and all of us.
Mubadde balabi balungi okuva walige twatandikidde ku ssaawa 2 paka natewe tuwunzikidde program yaffe ku ssaawa 4. Njagala okubeebaza mwe bali kubeerako nga mulaba mwe bali commentinga yadde comments tetuziyiseemu.
A second, sorry, I'm seeing someone commenting that can't you access your vaccination information online? Chief, Mr. Kalyango Mash. This is the point. Like so many, all of you, in fact, who said, I think Arnold. Yes, it is true. We do access all this info online. Then certificate says certificate webeerayo eraga reflecting at bakugema mulundi gumu era online. Tene online yemu. My friends nga Arnold n'abalala bagezaako akesinga bo tebalabikanga namukuba mu Uganda bali abaddemu ne certificate eriyo. In fact yenga mukose n'abalala tebabagemanga. You can access when it is there.
Yes.
If it's not,
So it's not that we are painting a bad image to the Ministry of Health, but tell them that their information, their database, whatever, it's not.
Nange yange raga gumu ngate bange mesa mirundi ebiri, but it shows once. I'm planning to go for a booster dose, so I don't know whether booster dose jakulaga ante. No, I don't know. Maybe booster dose yinzo laga ate one second jab netalaga.
And as far as we know, they were given the kamani. People go to the kamani, ne bachusa ku bitenji, ne bachusa apartments, so at least okay, but okay, fine. Ngamu Museveni bagamba ne ba investing on. Kati kuze mujamu renti. Maybe musize musasura bana ba data entrance bakolechi
ezo sibazaabwe
updating data
koze na mchala na mukina tenje kamera ate omukulu omukose Anthony yatudde mu control room. Thank you for working nababadde kushona mmwe bali kulaba mmwe bali commenting amukulu Kalyango Musanku tomiddeko nnyo ne nkutolera salamu assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Tubagaliza omwaka ompya gubaberera ogwesanyu ate ogw'emirembe. Tusinkane ndowooza ku ssaawa emu ey'olweggulo n'omukulu Abdal Tif ngali mu hotline. See you then. Have a very good morning.
The Alternative Digitalk. Real issues, real talk.